The night hung heavy over the deserted highway, swallowing the feeble glow of my headlights. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white as the road stretched out before me like a never-ending ribbon of darkness. The only sounds were the rhythmic hum of the engine and the eerie whispers of the wind. I had taken this desolate route to save time, a shortcut, they said. But now, as the miles rolled on, regret coiled in my stomach like a snake. The gas gauge flirted dangerously close to empty, and there was no sign of civilization in sight. Panic began to set in, each passing mile marker intensifying the feeling of isolation. As I rounded a bend, the headlights caught a flicker in the distance. Relief surged through me as I spotted a dilapidated gas station, its neon sign buzzing in the night. I pulled in, the gravel crunching beneath the tires. The station seemed frozen in time, a relic of the past with its rusted pumps and peeling paint. I stepped out of the car, the cold night air sending shivers down my spine. The gas station's eerie silence was broken only by the distant howls of a lone wolf. I grabbed the nozzle and began to pump gas, my eyes scanning the darkness for any signs of life. That's when I saw her. A figure emerged from the shadows, a silhouette cloaked in darkness. My heart skipped a beat as she stepped into the dim light, revealing a face shrouded in sorrow. Her clothes were tattered, and her eyes bore a haunting emptiness. "Can you help me?" she whispered, her voice a spectral echo in the still night. I hesitated, the unease settling in the pit of my stomach. "What do you need?" Her lips curled into a melancholic smile. "A ride, just a little further down the road." Against my better judgment, I agreed. She climbed into the back seat, and the car seemed to groan under the weight of her presence. As I merged back onto the desolate highway, the atmosphere inside the car changed. The air became thick with an otherworldly tension, and the road ahead seemed to warp and twist. I tried to make small talk, but she remained silent, her eyes fixed on the darkness outside. The landscape outside the window became a blur of indistinct shapes, the night playing tricks on my tired mind. Suddenly she spoke, her voice low and haunting. "Do you believe in ghosts?" The question hung in the air, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "I don't know what I believe," I stammered, glancing nervously at her through the rearview mirror. She chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "You will." As we drove deeper into the night, the road seemed to coil and twist like a serpent, leading us into a realm untouched by the living. The car's headlights illuminated twisted trees that seemed to reach out like skeletal fingers, and the shadows danced on the edge of my consciousness. I tried to shake off the growing unease, but the atmosphere inside the car had become oppressive. The temperature dropped, and my breath formed ghostly clouds in the air. I stole glances at the woman in the back seat, and her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "Stop the car," she whispered. I obliged, pulling over to the side of the road. The engine fell silent, and an ominous stillness settled over the landscape. The woman stepped out of the car, her form dissolving into the shadows. A haunting melody drifted through the air, a mournful tune that seemed to seep from the very fabric of the night. I felt an invisible force pulling me out of the car, and I followed the sound of the music into the darkness. As I walked further from the car, the world around me warped and twisted. Trees contorted into grotesque shapes, and the road beneath my feet seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The haunting melody grew louder, filling my ears with a symphony of despair. And then, I saw them. Ghosts, shadows of the past, emerged from the darkness. Faces etched with pain and longing, they reached out to me with spectral hands. I stumbled backward, my mind unable to comprehend the surreal nightmare unfolding before me. The woman appeared beside me, her eyes aflame with an ethereal light. "Welcome to the realm of the lost," she whispered, her voice a haunting echo. Desperation clawed at my chest as I realized the truth. I had entered a world between worlds, a limbo where the spirits of the forgotten lingered. The road that had seemed never-ending now spiraled into a twisted labyrinth of the afterlife. I turned to flee, but the path behind me had vanished. I was trapped in a nightmare, surrounded by the anguished souls of the departed. The woman's laughter echoed through the spectral landscape as I stumbled through the ghostly fog. The haunting melody intensified, a chorus of wails that seemed to pierce my very soul. I ran, the shadows closing in around me, and the world dissolved into a surreal nightmare. As I plunged deeper into the labyrinth, I realized that there was no escape. I was a lost soul, a wanderer in the realm of the forgotten, condemned to roam the twisted roads of the afterlife for eternity. And as the haunting melody echoed through the endless darkness, I joined the chorus of the lost, my screams blending with the ghostly symphony that played on into the eternal night.
The house creaked in the darkness, an old symphony of settling wood and shifting shadows. I was alone, the echo of my solitude bouncing off the walls, amplifying every sound into a haunting melody. My parents had gone away for the weekend, leaving me in charge of our ancient home that seemed to hold secrets in its very foundation. I tried to shake off the unease as I settled in for a night of solitude. The TV flickered with muted light, casting eerie shadows across the living room. I scrolled through channels, the glow of the screen the only company I had. As the night deepened, a chill settled in the air. I pulled a blanket tighter around my shoulders, trying to convince myself that the ominous feeling was just a byproduct of being alone in a big, old house. But the unease lingered, a subtle undercurrent that refused to be ignored. The clock on the wall ticked away the minutes, each one stretching into an eternity. I decided to distract myself with a book, hoping the words on the pages would drown out the whispers of my overactive imagination. Just as I began to lose myself in the story, a soft thud echoed from somewhere within the house. I looked up, my heart pounding in my chest. Silence followed, a heavy stillness that seemed to wrap the house in an invisible shroud. I dismissed it as a product of an old house settling, but the unease lingered. I turned the TV volume up, trying to drown out the quiet that seemed to press against my ears. Hours passed, and fatigue began to pull at my eyelids. I decided to call it a night, making my way upstairs to my parents' room. The familiar creak of the staircase seemed louder in the silence, each step a protest against the solitude. I crawled into the unfamiliar bed, surrounded by the scent of my parents' perfume and the weight of their absence. As I drifted into a fitful sleep, the thuds and creaks of the house continued, a nocturnal symphony that seemed to gain a haunting rhythm of its own. In the dead of the night, I was jolted awake by a sound that sliced through the darkness like a knife. It was a whisper, soft and unintelligible, weaving through the air like a ghostly thread. My eyes widened, scanning the room for the source of the eerie murmur. The closet door stood ajar, the darkness within impenetrable. Fear clung to my throat as I stared at it, unable to tear my gaze away. Another whisper, this time closer, danced on the edge of my consciousness. Against my better judgment, I got out of bed, the floor cold beneath my bare feet. I approached the closet hesitantly, the whispers growing louder with each step. I reached for the door, the wood cool to the touch. As the door creaked open, a gust of frigid air rushed out, carrying with it a chorus of ghostly voices. Shadows danced within the confines of the closet, coalescing into indistinct forms that seemed to beckon me into their ethereal realm. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as I slammed the closet shut. The whispers ceased, leaving me in a suffocating silence. The room felt charged with an otherworldly energy, and the air was thick with the weight of unseen eyes. I fumbled for the light switch, bathing the room in harsh fluorescence. The closet stood innocently closed, but the air still vibrated with an unsettling energy. I told myself it was a dream, a product of an overactive imagination fueled by the solitude of the night. Determined to dispel the lingering unease, I decided to check the rest of the house. As I descended the stairs, each step seemed to echo with a hollowness that sent shivers down my spine. The living room was still, the TV casting long shadows on the walls. I moved through the house like a phantom, my senses heightened by an inexplicable fear. The kitchen was empty, the refrigerator humming in the silence. I hesitated before the basement door, the darkness within seeming to pulse with an ominous energy. Summoning my courage, I opened the door. the creaking hinges protesting against the intrusion. The stairs descended into an inky void, and I fumbled for the light switch. The basement revealed itself in stark fluorescence, an array of forgotten belongings and dusty memories. Just as I began to convince myself that my fears were unfounded, a shadow stirred in the corner. My eyes widened as a figure emerged, its form indistinct and ethereal. It was a silhouette, a shape that seemed to defy the boundaries of reality. I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. The figure lingered in the darkness, its eyes fixed on mine. I tried to scream, but the sound caught in my chest. The basement seemed to close in around me, the air thick with an oppressive weight. With a sudden lurch, the figure advanced, its movements unnatural and unsettling. Panic seized me, and I bolted up the stairs, the echoes of my footsteps mingling with the haunting whispers that seemed to chase me. I burst out of the house, the cool night air a welcome relief. The neighborhood slept in blissful ignorance, unaware of the horrors that lurked within the confines of my home. I stood on the front lawn, the weight of the night lifting as the distance from the house grew. As the first light of dawn painted the sky, I dared to glance back at the house. Its windows were dark, a silent sentinel that concealed the secrets of the night. I never went back, leaving the house and its haunting whispers behind. But the memory lingered, a spectral echo that followed me wherever I went. The whispers of that night became a part of me, a chilling reminder that some horrors can never be escaped, only buried in the recesses of the mind. And as I moved through life, the shadows of that haunted night clung to me, a ghostly presence that refused to be forgotten. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing so you won't miss out the next stories.